We welcome you to another edition of Economic Forum, where we discuss various issues affecting our economy in Zimbabwe. And today we are back with the environment. We are going to be looking at communities and how they are working towards improving their environment for future generations. There's an entity that has got a motto that says reduce, reuse, repair and recycle. And we've invited Michael Mataure, who is also part of that entity, who are driving this motto, to unpack it for us. And we also see what the economic benefits are, in reducing, repairing, and recycling. Michael, welcome to Economic Forum.
Thank you very much, John. I'm pleased to be here.
Michael is a former member of parliament. You represented Chimanimani at one time. But what is important is that you're also concerned about the environment. And I'm sure that over and above other areas, you're also concerned about the environment in your place of origin, Chimanimani, which was also devastated by the cyclone Idai. Probably at the end of the program, you'll also tell us what you are doing in your own area, in your own home area. But for today, what are you doing with this project whereby you are enriching and empowering and capacitating communities towards improving their environment for future generations and for the benefit of our economy?
The starting point would be that all life, human life, generates waste. And in the community I live in currently, in Harare, we've had problems with how waste accumulated over time. It wasn't collected on time, and in the end, people were resorting to all kinds of illegal ways of disposal. So a number of us came together and we decided to, form ourselves into a supportive group. And the first thing that we did was, initially we took turns to ferry what we could to the dump sites, the official dump sites. But the volume of waste is much greater than we could.
It became unsustainable.
Totally. And so we began to engage the city to find out why there was no schedule. We also tried to engage other people who had similar interests. And as we went further and further, it became necessary to form some kind of entity that could mobilize in a consistent way, engaging even with scientists. We have young people who are supporting us to mobilize amongst their own peers how to deal with waste. It's estimated that Harare, for example, generates upwards of 250,000 tons of waste a year. The city is only able, at this point, to dispose of 180,000 tons. So it means there's a deficit of 70, which remains with the communities. But it's been worse in the last 3-4 years. So for us, the starting point was getting the right information, getting to know how we could do it in a smart way, and thirdly, educating ourselves about the problems that are associated. So we began to understand that there is a smart way of getting rid of our waste. For example, you need a schedule. The cities and the local authorities always work to a schedule. But when they ran out of transport, these schedules fell away. So for us, we began to look for alternatives. And one of the alternatives we found out about was separation of waste at source, which means a lot of the material that we are throwing away is actually, it's got an economic value. It has been estimated and actually proven that 60% of what we throw into the rubbish bins is actually material that can be put back into industry.
And hence your slogan.
Yes, that's how it relates. And beyond that, we also found out that the city, if we all went by the same slogan, would be able to reduce the amount that they take away to the dump site by as much as 60%. So we would only require that 60% is what we reclaim, 20% are the organics, the biodegradables. Your leftover, cereals, your leftover foods, those would go into composting. And you can actually use the compost for your own garden. You wouldn't need to buy organic.
Be productive, agriculturally,
yes,
and so forth. Is this something that you found out that people are already doing, or you're starting from scratch, especially separating the waste and so forth?
We found that people were already doing it, but in all over the place. Some were doing it in their own little community. Some were doing it at household level. But we discovered that over 90% are not in that field at all. People basically just want to get rid of waste. But if you did an experiment, even in your own homestead, John, to say, let's put paper together, let's put plastics together, let's put boxes, bottles, etc., you'd be able to see that most of the things that you separate, as long as they are clean, actually can have a value. They have a commercial value. Apart from that, it's important also to understand that the world is actually suffering because we are trying to get rid of material that we can reuse. We burn it. When you burn, you release a lot of toxicity into the atmosphere. You also create high temperatures, which are also now affecting the way the world works.
Then you're now coming to climate change.
Climate change. So, in a sense, and we're also polluting, because when you burn, a lot of the material that you burn, whatever it leaves behind, sometimes is toxic. It goes into the waterways, some of it remains in the ground, and it pollutes and affects growth of plants. Animals are also known to, eat up some of the materials that we're throwing. So there are a lot of negatives, and these have a bearing on the state of our economy and our ability to produce food, to stay healthy.
There are so many things that you still have to unpack from your motto, and we'll be doing that in the second segment. But very briefly, you started off as a group of friends, as part of a community in Harare. Mm-hmm. Have you now spread your wings countrywide?
We're going countrywide, John, in the sense that several of the supporting organizations have got a very wide presence in the country. We're also negotiating through the system of the local authorities, because the local authorities are structured. So we're working through them, and the other big networks that we've started working with now are the churches, the faith-based organizations.
Go into that, churches, schools, and so forth. Yes. But that's Michael Mataure, who is working with an entity together with friends. They started in Harare, and they are going to be expanding in many other parts of the country, as he has explained. And their motto is reduce, reuse, repair, recycle, and reclaim. And this is to conserve the environment for our economic benefits as also for the future. So join us in the second segment. We are now in the second segment of Economic Forum, where we are discussing the environment with a community development practitioner here, Michael Mataure. We did mention that he has several heads, but we are focusing here on his involvement with the community. And we are discussing how him and colleagues are helping different communities to conserve the environment. And we have just started where you were discussing what you are doing to empower the communities through their churches, through their schools, and so forth. Let's take it from there.
Thank you, John. You'll appreciate that we are a very small group. The core group, the founding group, is a very small group, less than a dozen people. However, what we've worked out is that there are other entities that are out there. And one of the most influential ones are the faith-based organizations, the churches. And we have actually engaged practically, physically with them. And many of them, apart from preaching the word, preaching the gospel, are also very keen on the livelihoods and the good health of the people that are members of their organization. And we found even in the schools, the organization of schools, so schools are very structured. So if children know that they've got 3 different receptacles for waste, They put paper in this one, their leftover lunch in a third one, and so on and so forth. So we've begun to use those avenues to sensitize and encourage communities to take charge of how they deal with waste around themselves.
How can this be taken home? Because there's so many things that we do at school, there's so many things that we do at church and at workplaces that we don't seem to be taking to our communities. How are you doing that with regards to your project?
Effectively, John, it's really a step at a time, every day. As it is now, I expect that you yourself and even the people watching this program will begin in their own home to separate the different classes of waste that they are throwing away. Because what often happens is people put everything together, and so the material that needs to be recycled or should be recycled cannot be mixed with, say, leftover food. If you're taking paper, you can't be mixing it with oil. And if you're going to use plastics, they cannot be dirty. It has to be cleaned. So for it to have value, it must be looked after. So you begin with that. Basically have 3 or 4 receptacles where you put in different classes of material. And at the end of the day, there are companies and there are individuals who are collecting. We are trying right now, we're negotiating with the city of Harare, and Marondera is actually way ahead of Harare in this regard. There are people out there who are making items out of recycled material, basically collecting old bottles, chopping them up, some creating strings, and there's a commercial angle to it. There's a point at which people can use them in a very simplistic way, but there's also ways in which it can be incorporated into major production.
Actually, Michael, I was going to ask you what had happened to the old practice where we had someone, cycling around the township, calling out Mabodoro, yes, or Mabonzo and so forth. And many people may have not known what that was for, but this is exactly what you're explaining. Those things were going to be recycled and reused.
Yes, in fact, John, then it was difficult for those people to collect because the collection of waste material, or garbage as people often call it, was done in a systematic way. So there will be very little waste to be collected. Right now we've got the opposite. There's so much out there, but unfortunately its value is degraded because we're putting everything together. One of the strategies, when you asked, one of the strategies that we are now trying to negotiate again with communities and the local authorities is to create what we call waste transfer stations. Waste transfer stations would be a location within a particular neighborhood where the community comes up with a team of people who on a daily basis receive separated waste material, paper, plastics, bottles, whatever. And these are actually weighed, packaged, and sent off for reuse. Secondly, it reduces the need for people to try and look for little clumps of bush to throw away their waste, because now there's a structured way. So even if the local authority has no trucks to come and collect the waste, at least people know we can take it to the waste transfer station, from where now both the city and commercial entities can come and collect and reclaim. But more importantly, people begin to get a value for their effort. So if you collect 4, 5, 6, 7 kilos of paper a week, at the end of the month, that will amount to something. So that's what we want to encourage. The waste industry in the world today is worth over $300 billion.
And we're moving towards that, isn't it?
Yes.
It's with the Pomona dam site. There are some moves that are being taken to commercialize that place in order for all the garbage to be collected and recycled there, and with a commercial value. But very briefly, all this that you're doing, a very good effort. Are you the only ones? And if there are many of you, Are you coordinating your work so that the communities are not confused? Very briefly.
Yes, we all are coordinating around state organizations like EMA. EMA is a very big player. We coordinate through the city of Harare. We also coordinate Marondera, Bulawayo is coming up. We're also coordinating through the tertiary institutions. A lot of research has been done. For Zimbabwe, there are well over 50, 60 publications which have been done in the last 10 years. About waste and how it should be handled. Regrettably, sometimes these papers are very
gather dust, they become waste themselves. I'll stop you there. Michael Mataure, who is a community development practitioner, is our guest today on Economic Forum, and we're discussing the environment, and we're looking mainly at the motto that they use, which is reduce, reuse, repair, recycle, reclaim. That's a mouthful, but very, very important. Join us in the third and final segment. We are now in the third and final segment of Economic Forum, where today we are back at the environment. We're discussing the environment, particularly unpacking some of the parts of the motto that Michael Mataure, our guest here, has told us about, which is reduce, reuse, repair, recycle, and reclaim. I think basically this is what we've been discussing in this program. But you know, Michael, there are those people who come around homes collecting some of the things that you have been mentioning. You are doing it at another level. But how can we as communities actually assist those people who move around? Remember, there are stories that we've read about of people who have actually received their education, telling us that, you know, we used to go around picking this and that and selling, and my mother was able to send me to school. Take it from there.
Thank you, John. I think you used a very important word. You said there are people who are assisting by collecting. They're actually assisting you. We should look at it as our collective responsibility. The issue of waste is actually, in a way, to use a cliche, sitting time bomb. Because if we do not do it in a structured way and make it a habit, we should not wait for just the first Friday of each month. That day should be when we are actually clearing up what was left over. But what we should be endeavoring to do is to make every day a cleanup day, so that the volumes stay low, the amount of benefit from the person collecting bones, leftover food, if you can't compost it yourself, the person collecting the plastics, the old exercise books or books that you no longer want to read, that should actually be adding to the economy. Those are actually jobs. When you actually burn anything, you're actually burning away a job. You're burning away dollars.
And knowledge.
And knowledge too, yes. The truth of the matter is we need to ensure, and this is one of the things that we looked at, we need to ensure that you put all your clean waste in one receptacle. You no longer need to have 5 or 6 containers. You can actually put all the clean containers, boxes of cereal, carton, the empty carton of milk, paper. You can put it in one, and all the other biodegradables go into a second one, where you then take it to your compost heap or give it to somebody who is doing vermiculture, which is now people are now into worm production. And these worms actually help to digest all this material and create compost, very rich compost, which actually pays very well. The Middle East actually imports tons, hundreds of thousands of tons to mix with the sand so that they also have a green belt. So we need to get into that culture to say, I can create a value. Yes, I might have emptied out my cereal, I might have emptied out my toothpaste, but that still can be used somewhere else. And the import bill for the country in a lot of industry would be reduced very significantly if we're able to recycle a lot of the materials and reclaim a lot of materials that we are trying to get rid of. As I said, it has been proven scientifically. The papers are there, the research has been done. Over 60% of the material that we're calling waste is actually reclaimable and reusable.
Michael, there's also the issue about the old cars, that are dumped, along the way. I passed through some road. So many, old cars there. What is being done about that so that they are cleared? There are quite a lot of them actually, these shells of cars and so forth. And they're becoming an eyesore.
Yes. Thank you, John. I think one of the things that we need to appreciate is that the issue of handling or managing waste it has to be a collective affair. A lot of those old cars are actually, that is money sitting there. And all it takes, when people are saying they don't have jobs, a lot of companies can, and a lot of individuals can actually use different aspects or different parts of the same entity or the same material to create wealth, to generate revenue, and actually to be occupied. So we need to work on a nation of people that are conscious of their environment, that are conscious of their living surroundings, that are also conscious of the cost of not doing the right thing at the right time.
The informal traders, a lot of people are into informal business nowadays. Are you also working with them? You don't have a lot of time, but what are you doing to work with them? Because that's where a lot of activity is. That's where a lot of waste is also coming from.
In fact, a lot of, a growing number of the informal and individually employed people are actually helping to collect a lot. Some actually specialize only on discarded bottles, water bottles. Others are focusing on paper. Some are focusing on metals. So what they are lacking is support to be able to aggregate all this waste, because when you've got boxes and boxes together, you need to shred them so that you're able to, carry them. They're able to be transported effectively. So a lot of support is also required for the informal people who are doing the little that they can. Some of them just need hand carts to be able to go around the neighborhood and collect, so that they reduce the amount of waste that we're trying now to burn away after hours in our homes.
Well, Michael Mataure, thank you very much for coming on to Economic Forum, where you've been sharing a lot of ideas about the environment, especially when you were unpacking some of the things that you do under reduce, reuse, repair, recycle, and reclaim in your entity that you started with friends and relatives. And also about how we should handle our waste. And we should also forget some of the household goods that we use in our homes, including clothes, that when there's a call for people to donate to charity, we should also be receptive and donate to charity rather than throwing them away, because that will help those people who have to reuse and also benefit from that. So thank you very much for coming on to Economic Forum. And what remains also is to thank the technical team. If you would like to get in touch with us, do so on the numbers that are showing you on your screen. And if you miss some of the episodes, please do visit our YouTube channel, which is Economic Forum Zimbabwe. So until next time, this is John Maso.